all of the owners of Stone Oak are investors themselves, and we manage our own properties just like we would anybody else's. And we do it with integrity, and we really have a very tight grasp on getting maintenance at a good cost. That's something that we're really passionate about, is making sure that we're not just throwing our owners' money out the window. We do things like move-in orientation, where we meet the tenant at the property and we show them everything about the house. Because what we found is that a lot of times tenants are moving straight from an apartment to a house, and they're like, I've never had to do any of these things. I don't know where a water shutoff valve is, and so showing them these things, showing them where the electrical panel is, and little things about their dishwasher, and things that I always thought were just like common knowledge are really not. So we like to take the time to coach our tenants through the home process. And then once a service request or a maintenance ticket is put in by a tenant, we take the time to first troubleshoot it with them before sending out a vendor. So
with the orientation part, I really like that, because I feel like if you just spend 10-15 minutes walking them through the property, showing them everything, it will also save time. And this goes for everybody who's also self-managing. It will save you time from getting text messages later, like during that first 2 weeks or something, as they're trying to become acquainted with the home. This way it's all said and done right there, especially if you can create a checklist of things to cover during those orientations.
Can you walk us through some of the no-nos, some of the bumps and bruises that you've been in the game for a while? Some of the guys here have one property, some have up to 10 or whatever. Can you talk about some of the just big no-nos that you would say, hey guys, don't even start with that, so that you don't finish that way? And I'll give you a perfect example. I got a buddy of mine who acquired 10 rental properties at one time. He bought a big portfolio. And I remember him texting me one day when I was at the zoo. I just kind of texted him, hey, what's up? What are you doing? And he goes, well, I'm about to drive to all of my properties one by one to pick up the rents. And I called him and I was like, dude, do not make that mistake. Yeah. Instead, run to the bank, open a bank account, and then just tell them right now, this is where they're going to deposit. We'll figure it out later. But if it's rent day today, do not start training them that you're going to drive around. So can you talk about some of the big no-nos that you would tell our mastermind here, of like things that they just shouldn't do right off the bat when getting their first rental property, getting their first tenants, et cetera?
Great question. Gosh, so many things come to mind, because I have a lot of friends who manage their own properties, and they're called me and they're like, what do I do?
I figured.
Well, great point. I mean, like, yeah, opening up a bank account, figure out what tools you have that you can use to be more efficient, so you're not wasting time. That's really a huge one that I see a lot of times, is people just wasting time on things that shouldn't be wasted. The biggest no-no that I would recommend, or if I had to pick one, is people not following their lease. So the moment you step outside of the lease and you make an exception for your tenant, if you have to end up in court, let's say an eviction, worst case scenario, and the tenant brings up emails or text messages from you saying, okay, well, this time it's fine for this and this time it's fine for that, the lease is actually void. Because the moment you stop following it, the judge is going to say, okay, well, what else have you agreed to that is outside of the lease? So just follow the lease. And what I really love about it is the lease can be your bad guy. It can be your middleman, even if you're self-managing, and it's hard because you don't have a middleman to blame, right? You have to be the bad guy, but blame your lease. Say, I'm sorry, the lease states that I have to charge a late fee if you're a day late, and keep it on a running record, even if it's an Excel spreadsheet, and give the tenant a copy and say, I'm sorry, this month you owe $50 more because last month you have late fees. And then keep adding it up, and every month show them that ledger or email it to them, however you communicate with your tenant. Show them that, because then at the end of the lease, you can hold that from the deposit, right? You can't evict based on late fees, but you can surely hold it from the deposit if they owe you money. So yeah, just that's pretty much it. And just follow the lease, and also find efficiencies that'll save you time. Like you said, can end up really sneaking into your personal life and start causing you a lot of stress. And that's when I see owners throw their hands up and say, okay, just take it away, property manager. And if your goal is to get good at managing your own properties so that you can save that management fee, then just start being good at it from day one. Otherwise, you will get to the point where you can't handle it because it'll be stressful.
What are some of those softwares that you would recommend to our mastermind here, that you're like, use some of these, or some of these are great, those that are going to be self-managing? Because like, for example, someone like me, I'm probably going to be self-managing forever. I kind of like the aspect of it, but I'd want to hear from you. What are some of the softwares that you would recommend?
For sure. So I'd say if you have if any more than 2 properties, start using a software. 2, it's like, okay, you have an Excel tab at the bottom and you can keep the file on your computer. And if you're really good with keeping accountable with updating all of that stuff, sure, keep using Excel. If you're ready to go to a software that will kind of automate the process for you, I recommend Cozy. It's COZY. And that one is, it's very easy. It's user friendly. It's for smaller portfolios. Once you start getting up into bigger portfolios, I recommend Buildium. Build and then IUM. We were using Buildium at Tree, and now we're using Appfolio at Stone Oak. Appfolio's a little bit more supportive on the financial side for bigger companies. And then you can start getting into, crazy. Rent Manager is amazing. There's a lot of great ones. But yeah, Cozy is a good way to start. And then use your tools, like even Venmo, right? Like, or PayPal. There's a lot of different sources online that you can use to do simple things like collect your rent, right? And then you would just have to like send them a statement through email. I also recommend trying to keep your personal life as separate from your property manager life as possible, creating a different email for your property management world. Like you said, a different bank account. And if you can, maybe even get a Google phone number. I think a Google phone number is free, actually. I'm not 100% sure. It used to be. I don't know if they charge now. And if you use that Google phone number, what it does is you can screen your calls, and then also you don't have to text your tenants. I really recommend not texting your tenants because judges hate looking at text messages in court, and it's just not a good idea. They'll start texting you late at night. They'll start blowing up your phone, and on Google phone, you can set hours. So you will run into a tenant that will try and ruin your life. You just will. So just accept it and don't get upset. Try to kind of emotionally distance yourself from the tenants. What I do with tenants is I tell them I empathize with them. I'm sorry you're going through something hard, but unfortunately I have to follow the lease because it's a legal obligation.